Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Health and the Environment, Low-Emitting Materials. We have some brief housekeeping before we start. Your phones are on mute. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box in the corner of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of today's session, time permitting, or via an email after. And you can always send questions to mapeidigital@mapei.com. Now, without any further delays, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Brittany Storm. Brittany is the Sustainability Manager for Mapei Corporation. Her background as a sustainable building consultant and in construction allow her to speak to audiences about both the big picture and the technical aspects of a project. She's a LEED accredited professional, AP, with a BD plus C and an ID plus C specialties, as well as a WELL AP and a Fitwel ambassador. In addition, she's active on many sustainability committees. And with that, I welcome her to the microphone. Brittany, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this presentation on low-emitting materials. Over the last few years, we've seen a growing demand for sustainability in building products, both with a dual focus of reducing our impacts on the human health and the environment. Since the company was founded, Mapei is focused on creating building products that are not only among the best and most durable in the industry, but are also designed to have minimal impacts on human health and the environment. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. First, the role of VOCs in products, the role of VOCs in green building standards and certification programs, how to find and verify that products meet green building standards and certification programs, and finally, how Mapei products meet the VOC requirements for green building standards and certification programs. As many of you know, low-emitting materials are just one of many green certifications or attributes that a product can have. Rather than overload the audience with many certifications or attributes that a product can have, like we have in past sustainability presentations, today we're going to take a deeper dive, specifically talking about the low-emitting materials attribute products can have. If you haven't already signed up, I encourage you to subscribe and or follow Mapei's website, social media accounts, etc., for other upcoming webinars, including sustainability. We're going to start off today by talking about indoor environmental quality versus indoor air quality. You may have heard of these buzzwords when talking about sustainability, but what are they and what do they have to do with floor setting materials? The average person spends about 90% of their time indoors. I don't know about you, but I feel like I spent all of 2020 indoors. The issue with all the time that we spend indoors is that we're exposed to poor indoor environments. Indoor environmental quality looks at everything from lighting, acoustics, temperature, as well as indoor air quality. It also looks at these conditions' impacts on people and their health, as well as their impacts on the environment. Indoor air quality is just one of the parameters that is a contributor of overall indoor environmental quality. And indoor environmental and indoor air quality have been shown to improve occupant health and productivity, as well as minimize the risk of sick building syndrome or building-related health problems. To protect the indoor environment, project teams should try to eliminate potential sources of contamination. While all of these measures are included in various green building standards and certification systems, today, again, we're just going to focus on choosing or selecting building materials with low emissions and low VOC content. Potentially important sources of indoor air quality contaminants are from interior building materials, furniture, equipment, etc. Building materials can contain contaminants that are gradually emitted throughout the life of the product. So when selecting materials for interior spaces, project teams should look for cost-effective, durable products that also provide desired performance, aesthetic qualities, and also protect indoor air and human health. The sources of indoor contaminants that we just saw, again, include building materials, and these cause short-term and long-term health effects. So many finishes that are installed inside a building use adhesives, sealants, or other architectural coatings that emit or off-gas VOCs during and after installation. Some of the VOCs that are emitted are odorous or irritating or toxic to human health. So it's important to select products with low VOC content and emissions. What are VOCs, or volatile organic compounds? VOCs are carbon compounds that vaporize or become a gas at normal room temperatures, and they tend to evaporate from a building product into the air over time, where humans then breathe it in. VOC compounds released from building materials include formaldehyde, benzene, heavy metals, and many more chemicals that I cannot pronounce. They're often emitted at high levels when a product is first installed and then taper off to lower levels over time. And this is related to curing time or drying time of the components, where they might be initially wet and then ultimately dry. So why are these a problem? Well, outdoors, many VOCs participate in atmospheric photochemical reactions, or making smog. Outdoor sources of VOCs include gasoline, diesel emissions, wood burning. Indoors, many of these VOCs have direct health effects. So there's associated, as we mentioned before, associated short-term acute sick building syndrome symptoms, that's a mouthful, as well as longer-term chronic health effects. An EPA study found that levels of common organic pollutants are typically 2 to 5 times higher inside than they are out. And some of the indoor products that may have VOCs include paints, adhesives, wood preservatives, aerosol sprays, air fresheners, pesticides, flooring, and other building products. So what are the roles of VOCs, indoor air quality, and indoor environmental quality in a green building standard and certification program? Well, the answer is, in one way, shape, or form, VOCs, indoor air quality, and indoor environmental quality are included in all of these green building standards and certification systems that are shown here, and even more that are not shown here. And first, this is just another view of the last slide of what the green building standards that we just saw. These are credits or strategies or features or petals within the green building standards that cover VOCs, indoor air quality, and indoor environmental quality. So it certainly has an impact on the green building standards. And today we're going to cover a few of these. We'll cover LEED, WELL, and Living Building Challenge, as these are the most commonly known or commonly used green building standards. The first one is LEED, or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. LEED has multiple rating systems depending on the project type. Mapei Products contribute to 2 credit categories, which is the materials and resources, as well as the indoor environmental quality. But again, today we're going to focus on just IEQ credits. So under the previous versions of LEED, up until version 3 or V3 or V2009, manufacturers only had to provide VOC content, which was available on the TDS or SDS or product data sheet. But things changed under version 4. The information that you're seeing was pulled from LEED's new construction rating system, the indoor environmental quality category, and this is called the low-emitting material credit. This is LEED's language for low-emitting adhesives, sealants, paints, coatings, flooring, composite wood, ceilings, walls, insulation, and furniture. So everything within the building has to hopefully meets the low emitting requirements. Under version 4, manufacturers now have to provide project teams with additional information. So on the far left, you'll see a summary of the thresholds for each product type. So those that I just mentioned with like interior paints and coatings, interior adhesives and sealants, flooring, wood, etc. And the requirements that they have to meet. So using the top row as an example for paints and coatings or even adhesives and sealants, 90% of the products used on site should meet emissions requirements and 100% should be low in VOC content. The next one is the rating system breaks down what they mean by emissions and what they mean by content. In the middle picture there, you see emissions must meet California Department of Health or CDPH version 1.1 or greater, and VOC content must meet South Coast Air Quality Management District SQAMID rule 1113 or 1168. And we'll break these down further in a little bit. I do want to draw your attention to the phrase wet applied on site, as we will see this also in upcoming slides. Wet applied is a product that comes to a job site either as a liquid or a dry powder in which water is added on site. And then after ultimately it dries and becomes a solid. So an example would be grouts, mortars, caulking, concrete mixes, adhesives, those are all wet applied. There are also requirements for non-wet applied products such as flooring or flooring underlayments, or they would either be considered inherently non-emitting or they would have to meet VOC emission requirements. Same thing for the well building standard. If you're not familiar with the well building standard, it's a green building rating system that focuses specifically on the design, construction, and operations of a building's impacts on human health. This was pulled from the Well Building Standards Reference Guide. They have a materials concept or a credit category, and same thing as a concept. And they have a VOC restrictions feature or credit, as you see here. And the same language under the well version 1 as under the air concepts, just as a FYI if your project team's pursuing one of those. But to get into the credit language, well doesn't have as detailed of a product type breakdown like we saw in the lead slides. They have a part 1 for wet applied products, and they have a part 2 for all other product types like furniture and flooring. But under part 1, as we see here, well states that all newly installed interior wet applied paints, coatings, adhesives, sealants, and finished poured flooring have to meet the SQAMID rules, and 75% of the products have to meet CDPH standard for emissions that we saw on the last slide. And again, same thing with the Living Building Challenge. They have credit categories or petals, and there is one for indoor environmental quality called Health and Happiness. And again, their VOC requirements under Imperative 10 for healthy interior performance states that 90% of interior products must comply with CDPH standard method V1.1/2010. And these standards, the versions update as newer versions of well, living, building, or LEED change. So do the versions of the California or the CDPH standards. Okay, so you saw a few of the different green building standards, low emitting materials requirements, but what does all that mumbo jumbo mean? Simply put, project teams have to provide 2 documents for each building product or material within the weatherproofing of the building. Again, we're keeping things specific to floor setting materials here. So every flooring adhesive, every flooring sealant, coating, underlayment, etc., has to provide 1 VOC content of the product, and it has to provide 2 VOC emission certification showing compliance with CDPH. So in one way, shape, or form, they're all asking the same thing that we just saw on the examples of LEED and well and living building. Some programs are stricter than others, but if you read between the lines, they're all asking for the same documentation. And we're going to break down each of those documents now. I'm also showing here some low-emitting buzzwords. Typically, if you see one of these buzzwords either on a submittal request or a submittal cover sheet, sometimes you'll see lead cover sheets where project teams are asking specifically for this information, or even specs. They're asking for VOC information. So VOC content and VOC emissions are the two things that you need to provide, and we're now going to discuss what each of those means. VOC content is the amount of VOCs present in a product. It's generally reported as a percentage or weight per unit volume, whereas VOC emissions are a measure of the amount of VOCs released into the air from that product. In the US, VOC content has been the main method for evaluation because VOC content regulations such as SQAMID, as I call it, or South Coast Air Quality Management District, they have regulations, which we'll share. But recently, the green building industry has shifted to VOC emissions in addition to VOC content because air concentration measurements from chamber testing are much better predictor of emissions over time, as well as exposure to VOCs. VOC content in a product does not directly translate to VOCs that will be emitted, and reactions that take place during the application mean that some products with zero VOC content may actually emit VOCs under real-world conditions. So that's why green building standards have updated to ask for both content and emissions so that they understand what it's like, what the product's like when it's just on its own, like if it's a powder, and then what it'll be like when it actually does emit. What are they looking at for exposures and emissions over time? This is a breakdown of SQAMID ruling 1113 and 1168 for VOC content. They specify max VOC content for various adhesives, sealants, paints and coatings, and other applications. So for example, floor or wood flooring adhesives, project teams would find a wood flooring adhesive with VOC content that's less than 100 grams per liter, as we see on the column on the left-hand side. And then for floor coating such as concrete floors, project teams should find a floor coating with VOC content less than 100 grams per liter, as we see on column right, on the right-hand side. It's difficult nowadays to find products that don't meet these rulings. They've been around for quite some time. They've been around even green building standards for quite some time, I think as far back as version 1, from what I can remember. So it's not difficult for manufacturers to be able to provide qualifying products. And now there's the VOC emissions. This is the newer of the VOC requirements to green building standards and to manufacturers. And they're still pretty difficult to come by. VOC emissions require third-party testing and third-party certification. So green building programs, they don't specify which certifying body that manufacturers have to use, only that the products must comply with CDPH as highlighted in the credit language there. And there are a variety of different standards that you can, manufacturers can reach out to for certification. Currently, the best programs, I would say, for evaluating long-term exposure hazards, or they're generally based on the California environmental requirements, section 01350. You may have seen that 01350. We do get a lot of requests asking if we comply with that. That's a standard for emissions testing. So this standard sets emissions testing protocols and exposure standards. They have 80 plus individual VOCs that have to be tested, and for protocols that they have to meet, as well as their exposure. It's a 14-day chamber testing process that they have to go through, products have to go through. So there are 4 major third-party VOC emission certifying programs. The first one that you see up there is Floor Score, and this was developed by the Resilient Floor Covering Institute as well as SCS Global Services. They test and certify hard surface flooring and flooring adhesive products for compliance with indoor air quality emissions. There's also the Carpet and Rug Institute, or CRI, and they have Green Label Plus certification, and they test and certify carpet and carpet adhesive products. CRI Green Label Plus can certify non-carpet products, such as, for example, vinyl tile adhesives. They also certify that as well. SCS Indoor Advantage, or SCS Indoor Advantage Gold, they test and certify Floor Score certification, which is specific to hard surfaces. And they also test using Indoor Advantage or Indoor Advantage Gold for adhesive sealants, coatings, and other building materials and furniture. And then there's also UL Green Guard and UL Green Guard Gold. It's the same thing as I just mentioned for SCS. All applicable building materials can be tested and certified. I mentioned that SCS Indoor Advantage and SCS Indoor Advantage Gold, as well as UL Green Guard and UL Green Guard Gold. The gold thresholds require lower total VOC emission levels, so they better ensure that products are acceptable for use in the environments, like if you had a school project or hospitality maybe, or healthcare facilities. For green building certification programs like LEED or WELL, make sure that you use products that meet the gold thresholds. You do not get any credit for using non-gold versions of these certifications. And this is just an explanation for third-party certifications for compliance. So using Mapei as an example, as the manufacturer here, the third-party certifier uses a third-party testing lab for indoor air quality certification. So the third-party testing lab tests the manufacturer's products for compliance. All 3 of the third parties and the manufacturer communicate with regards to what products need to be tested, what requirements they have to meet, what are the standards for each type of product that's being tested, what are the sustainability goals of the manufacturer has. And once everything's certified, the manufacturer shares the third-party certification with customers. The testing lab will have an extensive report for each product that's tested, and that's given to the third-party certifying body to create a single page certification, or it might be multiple pages of a certification. But manufacturers are not required to share the reports with customers. It's not that we're hiding it, it's that manufacturers really only have to share that certification that shows that we've gone through the effort of testing, and this is the final report would be the certification. So we've identified what documentation to provide, but where in the world do you find this stuff? First, start with the project specifications. So I'll use LEED as an example here. Find out what the project team is looking for. The design team should communicate the types of products or materials that they're looking for under spec section 018113, the sustainable design requirements, or it might be under each spec section as we show here. A single product, again, can have up to 7 sustainable attributes or certifications, and we're only talking about one of the possible 7 today. So design teams should be specifying that low-emitting materials, the language should be something similar to what you're seeing here, what's highlighted. So some of the buzzwords that we saw, there's talk of VOCs or TVOCs or CDPH or SQUAMID ruling. So here we can see they're asking for documentation showing, requesting that there be VOC content and a certification showing compliance with CDPH. After reading the specs, in the vast sea of green product documentation, it's still pretty difficult to find VOC specific information because now the project team has to, based on specifications, they now have to reach out to every single manufacturer for every single building product or material to get this information. At Mapei, we have this information available in several places, one being our website, two, sustainability product reports. There's also third-party websites like Mindful Materials or Ecomedes or individual certification pages, or asking the sustainability team at Mapei. You know, it's for, again, like for a single product, you may have to reach out to, if you go doing the searches on your own, not knowing where to look, I would start with the manufacturer's website, because otherwise you're going to so many different third-party databases to pull information. So it's best to start with the manufacturer site. And this is a print screen of our website. So on Mapei's tools and downloads section, there's a product information library. And project teams can filter on the left-hand column by sustainability product report for a full summary of the product's sustainable attributes or certifications, or they can filter by volatile organic compounds or VOCs, as we learned. I will warn you, there are over 300 products that meet the SQUAMID rules and CDPH requirements, and we're adding to that list in the future. So I would stick with looking for sustainability product reports versus the VOCs, because you could get pretty lost in the sea there. And we also, as I mentioned, have sustainability product reports, and this is an example of one of the reports. Again, these can be found in the product information library or on each applicable product page on our website. There is a section on the sustainability product report called VOCs, where all the information you will need for any green building standard or any certification can be found here. It includes a link to the TDS for VOC content and a link to SCS Indoor Advantage Gold certification for VOC emissions or CDPH compliant information. And then when you click on the TDS, you will find VOC content information. All of Mapei's interior wet applied products meet either SQUAMID Rule 1113 for architectural coatings or Rule 1168 for adhesives and sealants. Over the last year, Mapei has gone through some incredible lengths to make sure all of our interior products are third-party tested and third-party certified. So project teams don't have to worry about choosing an adhesive from one manufacturer and an underlayment from another manufacturer. We've made it easier on project teams in that we have green systems to lessen a project team's daunting task of searching so many different manufacturers or different third-party libraries to find this information. Yes, we have thousands of products. However, we focused on those that are used in the interior or can be used interior/exterior. Exterior only products do not have to meet this certification yet, unless you're pursuing a healthcare project. So we do have over 350 Mapei products across the following product lines. Our sealants, architectural coatings, adhesives, underlayments, and other flooring accessories across all of our the product lines that are shown there. Our sustainable products can also be found on third-party databases like Mindful Materials. Project teams can filter by green building standards, certification types, product type, manufacturer, etc., to find the best product for their project. So on Mindful Materials, for example, if there is a star, as they've put in their legend, for a star in their VOC column, that means it has the third-party certification. And Mapei uses SCS Indoor Advantage Gold for our testing and certification. I know this is hard to read, and we're going to zoom in on each section here in a minute. And even though I can't see you, raise your hand if you've had to fill out a low-emitting calculator before. My hand's raised. Fun stuff, right? So if you're not aware, this is a Leeds low-emitting calculator. This is what it looks like. So this spreadsheet tallies VOC information for all of the adhesives, sealants, paints, coatings, wall systems, ceiling systems, insulation, furniture, I think I'm forgetting one, composite wood, etc., used within the weatherproofing of a project. So this is why customers reach out to manufacturers. This is why customers say, hey, I'm looking for your product's VOC content. I'm looking for a CDPH compliance certification. They're asking because they have to fill these calculators out. Before starting at Mapei, I was a sustainable building consultant. So I worked on several LEED Well Living Building Challenge projects. So I filled out hundreds of these in my life. Sadly, I'm one of those people that loves filling these out. At Mapei, we do get a lot of requests to fill out these calculators. And as you can imagine, they're time consuming. So if you're the lucky person that gets to fill these out for your project, we do love to help project teams fill them out, but we prefer to teach you how to fill them out so that in the future you can fill them out on your own using one of our sustainability product reports. So first, locate the product sustainability product report either on the product page or the product information library. And again, there can be up to 7 sustainable attributes or certifications. So you want to locate within the sustainability product report, locate the VOC section. So everything you will need to fill out the LEED low emitting calculator or really any other green building standards forms, they can be found on these sustainability product reports. So the calculator is broken into 3 main sections. There's the description of the material and the manufacturer. It's pretty easy. It's the product name and the manufacturer's name. The category, again, pretty simple. You would, it's asking you to define the product on this row. So is the product an adhesive? Is it a sealant? Is it a coating? Is it a piece of furniture? Wall system, what is it? Just a hint, if it's a Mapei product, it's not furniture. And that category can be found on the sustainability product report, as we'll see here in a minute. As you can see, the first line item on the sustainability product report shows that it's SQUAMID Rule 1168 for adhesives and sealants. So you know the category is interior adhesives and sealants. Again, there's the checkbox, so yes, it does comply. The next section of the calculator that's blown up there is the general emissions evaluation. So yes, there is a checkbox on our sustainability product report that it does conform to CDPH. You can also, you also have to provide the TVOC or total volatile organic compound range. This is found on the sustainability product report. This is a range that's provided via third-party testing. It's not something that Mapei came up with or any other manufacturer. This is the results of testing, and this is their emissions range. You can also see that you also have to provide backup documentation for any VOC claims. So there's a link to the CDPH compliant certification, which can be found by clicking on SCS Indoor Advantage Gold. And then the third section of the calculator is for VOC content. The sustainability product report, again, has a checkbox for conformance with the SQUAMID rule 1168. So you would plug that into the calculator. The only thing the sustainability product report doesn't have is the product type. You can select one from the pull down on the spreadsheet. So for example, if the product that you're using is a ceramic tile adhesive, you would select that, or if it's a carpet adhesive, you would select that. It just depends on how you're using the product or what product type it is. And then finally, the VOC content, which is also on the sustainability product report and can be plugged into the actual VOC column. The allowable VOC content column is auto-populated based on the product type selected, and then the SQUAMID max VOC limit for that product is automatically added to the column. So for example, a contact adhesive automatically populates to show 80 grams per liter. So if you're using a product that's 81 grams per liter, you would get a no for compliance on this calculator. Or let's say it's 80 or below, you would get a yes that it does comply. It is important to note that Mapei Products, or really any other manufacturer, do not get project teams lead points. Our products, or again, any other manufacturer's products, contribute to lead points. So after all the work we just shared, just to fill out one product calculator, that's just for one category, adhesives and sealants, we still don't have enough information for 1 point. The lead low emitting credit states that a minimum of 2 low emitting categories must be compliant. So in addition to the example that we used of adhesives and sealants, the project team would have to fill out this form for another category like paints and coatings or ceilings or walls or insulation or any other applicable credit category. And then that's just to get 1 point. And in LEED, you need a minimum of 40 points to get LEED certification. You also can't just add a single product and call it good on the spreadsheet. All products used within the weatherproofing of a building are required to be listed on the spreadsheet. LEED reviewers know their stuff too. The reviewers will call you out if they think you're short or if you're missing products. Like, for example, if they'll look at the flooring credit category and if they see that you have 10 different tiles, they want to know that you had different, or you either show that you had 10 different adhesives maybe for each ceramic tile type, or maybe there's a couple of different depending on the application, but they will call you out if they think that you're missing anything. And that brings us to the end of the low emitting presentation. I'm including our contact information should you have any additional questions on low emitting materials, or if you need help filling out the form or the lead calculator that we just saw, or any other sustainability questions, please feel free to reach out. I encourage you to stay tuned to our sustainability efforts. We've had a lot of big changes going on recently and in the near future, especially with the low emitting material certification, and we're excited to be adding product types and growing our product lines, VOC emissions certifications. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. We do have a few questions here. The first one, are VOC certifications the most important sustainable certification?
It depends. I think it varies per scope. So for example, exterior curtain walls, it would be more beneficial for them to have an EPD or another sustainable certification rather than VOC emission certification. For Mapei, while we do have other certifications, we have more VOC emission certifications, more so than any other sustainable certification, because it's based on our product type, it's the most impactful or the most useful for project teams.
Gotcha. Oh, here's one. In addition to the South Coast Air Quality Management District and the California Department of Health, some of the rating systems you mentioned also have CARB, EU, Eco Labels, AGBB certifications, and can I use these? That's a lot. That's an alphabet.
Yes, there are other certifications or testing programs that are out there that we didn't mention. The ones that we mentioned today are specific to testing standards for projects within the US. There are some that are, and they do vary outside of the US. You can't necessarily use a EU eco-label here, or the AGBB certification, which I think is German, because we just have different standards here. So for emissions, I would stick with CDPH compliant testing programs, and for content, stick with SQUAMID or a CARB standard. The South Coast Air Quality Management District, or SQUAMID, is the most widely used, so that's why we only discussed that one today.
Gotcha. All right. Up, here's another one. Why are there percentages of building products that have to comply instead of 100% of all the building products installed?
I think we'll eventually get there where 100% of the building products installed will have to comply. There are some products that might not meet green building standards, but they have to be used per code or per specifications, and green building standards understand that. I think it's also encourages manufacturers to get on board with certain certification processes. So you don't want to be that manufacturer that's not complying. So as we saw in LEED, for example, 90% of products have to comply. So if you have 10 adhesives on a project and 9 comply, you hope you're not that manufacturer that doesn't comply, because you're gonna, it just doesn't look good as a manufacturer, or it doesn't help the project team out. In LEED version 4.1, which is in beta right now, they reduced from 90% to 75%. I think 90% was difficult for manufacturers when version 4 first came out. So they're trying to help manufacturers and encourage more manufacturers to get on board. But programs like Living Building Challenge, which is LEED on steroids, or WELL, that focuses on health, they're going to be more strict when it comes to those percentages. So it wouldn't surprise me if eventually they are at 100%.
Yeah. Wow, that's going to be a lot of paperwork.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll leave this open for just a minute or two more if there are any more questions that want to come in. Brittany, thank you so much for a really very informative and useful webinar. And you did say at the beginning that there would be more. We'll hold you to that. We've got you on tape.
Sounds good.
We want to thank everybody in the audience for your time. We know that your days are very busy, and we really appreciate you spending some time out of that busy day with us. So with that, we thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again at the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.